Obey Jesus, Saving Bitcoin. Jeremy Hain. This is a video about Trump's accomplishments since he won the election. Kept a spreadsheet. Wins for Trump administration. Days after the election, companies move production back to the U.S. That's several CEOs. Putin no longer targets the dollar. Back to accepting the dollar for oil. Putin, that's Russian president. Zelensky agrees to peace talks. Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. Of course, they're still having war. They all went back on that. EU shifts to buying U.S. gas instead of from Russia. EU leaders. Hamas agrees to end war with Israel. Hamas leaders. Of course, they went back on that. Ceasefire in Israel and Lebanon. Leaders of both countries, they both went back on that. Mexico agreed to stop a migrant caravan after Trump threatened tariffs. That's from the Mexican president. Iran puts off strike on Israel to see if Trump can control Netanyahu of Israel. Leaders of Iran. The Ninth Circuit has ruled that the federal government has full uncontested authority to deport illegal aliens despite objections from local governments. That's the Ninth Circuit Court that usually goes super liberal. ABC agrees to pay $15 million for defamation to Trump. ABC and George Stephanopoulos. SoftBank invests $100 billion and 100,000 jobs into America. That's from the SoftBank CEO. Hamas and Israel agree to ceasefire and release hostages. That's Hamas and Israel leaders. Again, the peace has been broken. Closed national border. Trump executive order. This is day one, January 20th. He's inaugurated. The Biden mummy puppet show is over. Put American troops on the southern border. Trump executive order. That's day one. Establish the Department of Government Efficiency. Executive order. All of this is day one. Protected women from weirdo dudes pretending to be women going into women's places. Got rid of DEI and federal government. Designation of cartels as foreign terrorists. Declassifying all government records about JFK, RFK, MLK assassinations. That's January 23rd. Using the military to reroute water back to California. Gavin Newsom was running the water into the ocean. Trump made it go back into California. That's January 24th. The 23rd, Bitcoin and crypto executive orders for a working group to explore what the government's going to do with crypto. Reinstating military service members who were forced out for not taking COVID shot. Protecting children from chemical and surgical castration. Ending radicalized education in schools. Dangerous migrants in Guantanamo Bay. That's January 29th. They're going to send dangerous migrants to Guantanamo Bay. Sign into law the Laken Riley Act, which allows DHS to deport illegals charged with a crime. That's a law. Congress passed it. He signed it January 29th. Tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China by executive order, February 1st. Bunch of FBI who persecuted January 6th protesters and Trump were fired. That's by the acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bove. Doge gains control of payment systems at Treasury. This is an order by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, February 1st. American hostages taken back from Venezuela. That was Rick Grenell. Panama ends its deal with China over the Panama Canal. Panama President and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, February 2nd. Elon is destroying USAID, a giant slush fund pissing our money away. Doge team, that's February 3rd. 20,000 federal workers accept Trump's buyout to quit for $25,000 apiece. The entire administration implemented this, February 4th. U.S. Post Office stops accepting packages from China and Hong Kong. That's the Post Office. Executive order banning men from women's sports. February 5th. Trump executive order. Executive order ending anti-Christian weaponization of government. Executive order establishing the White House Faith Office. Executive order examining all agencies' infringements on Second Amendment of citizens. Trump executive order. Tariffs on steel from other countries. Executive order, DOGE, workforce optimization. Tariffs on aluminum from other countries. Executive order establishing Make America Healthy Again Commission, February 13th. Executive order establishing the National Energy Dominance Council, Valentine's Day. Tariffs that are reciprocal to all nations if they have tariffs on us. Executive order ending COVID vaccine mandates to go to any school. Executive order, radical transparency about wasteful spending. Executive order expanding access into in vitro fertilization. Executive order ensuring accountability for all agencies, keeping them in line with the president. That's important. February 18th. Executive order terminate all taxpayer-funded assistance for illegal aliens. February 19th. Mitch McConnell won't seek re-election in 2026. That's very important. He's a rhino. Doge team emailed every federal worker for 5 things they did during the week. Apple will invest $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. Apple CEO Tim Cook. Trump says whomever doesn't answer Doge's accomplishments ip is fired. Executive order for transparent pricing for hospitals. This is very important. You don't know what a hospital is going to do to you until the bill comes. It's crazy. Trump put an executive order stopping that. Reversing Biden concessions to Venezuela's Maduro. IRS to shut down 120 plus offices. IRS. Trump's IRS. Trump updates tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China to start March 4th due to drugs coming in, mostly that fentanyl. Mexico sends 29 drug cartel leaders to New York for extradition. That's the DOJ and Department of State, February 28th. He's only been president 2 months at this point. March 1st. Trump makes English the official language of America by executive order. Executive order to open up timber production in America. Renaming a wildlife reserve for Jocelyn Nungary. That is a girl that was brutally murdered by illegal aliens in Texas. Bitcoin strategic reserve and digital asset stockpile. March 6th. Trump executive order. Investigating lawfare by the law firm Perkins Coie. Restoring the public service loan forgiveness. Trump executive order. Ceasefire terms agreed to by Ukraine in war with Russia. That's since broken. That war is still going on. This is July 26th. Groups suing the federal government have to pay legal fees if they lose in court and must post security to cover the cost for the lawsuit to proceed. You got to show the federal government you got enough money to pay all the expenses if you sue the federal government. This will cut down on nuisance lawsuits filed by liberals because they were going to jam up the courts. That's executive order, March 11th. Very important. They were going to stymie the Trump administration with a bunch of ridiculous lawsuits. Rescinded more Joe Biden executive orders, March 14th. More cuts to the federal bureaucracy, 314. Invoked Alien Enemies Act to deal with a Venezuelan gang. Bombed the Houthis in Yemen for attacking ships in Suez Canal. Brought astronauts home. They were stuck on a space base. That's March 18th. Elon SpaceX company did that. Released 80,000 JFK files. March 18th. NVIDIA will invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. J.J. Johnson & Johnson will invest $55 billion in the U.S. This is all to avoid Trump's tariffs. UAE will invest $1.4 trillion in the United States. Hyundai will invest $20 billion in the United States, including a steel plant in Louisiana. Tariffs on countries importing oil from Venezuela. Trump executive order. Preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. March 25th. Protecting America's bank accounts against fraud, waste, and abuse. March 25th. Declassification of materials related to FBI's Crossfire Hurricane. That has now become very important in late July. It's an executive order on the 25th of March. USAID is officially closed, ending 64 years of Democrat money laundering, allegedly. This is by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Supreme Court rules against liberal judge. Trump can send illegal aliens out of the country immediately. Amy rules against Trump. But the Supreme Court still sides with Trump 5-4. All the men say yes. All the women say no. Strengthening U.S. electric grid. Executive order. Reinvigorating clean coal. Executive order. Restoring America's shipbuilding dominance. Executive order. 10% tariffs on most countries negotiating with the U.S. Punitive tariffs on China. Trump authorizes military control of border. Updating permitting technology for the 21st century. Ensuring commercial cost-effective solutions in federal contracts. Lowering prices of prescription drugs. People talk about we should have socialized medicine because they compare it to Canada and Europe. Comes to find out that we, the American people, have been subsidizing the world's prescription drugs. We pay far more than everybody else, which is why everybody else is able to pay less. Trump ended that. Preventing illegal aliens from receiving Social Security. I can't believe it was ever happening. Restoring American seafood competitiveness. Trump revamped Schedule F, making it easier to fire federal workers. Reinstating common sense school discipline policies. April 23rd. Preparing Americans for high-paying, skilled trade jobs of the future. Transparency regarding foreign influence of American universities. Strengthening probationary periods in the federal service. Give Trump more time to fire people. Unleashing America's offshore minerals. Strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement. Protecting American communities against criminal aliens. Enforcing common sense rules for the road for truckers. This is April 28th. We're now in May. Trump's been on the job, 3 full months? Ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. Establishment of Religious Liberty Commission. Ending of bioweapons research, gain-of-function research. I can't believe that was still happening. Regulatory relief to promote domestic production of critical medicines. Yeah, the United States got to make its own medicine. Ridiculous that it was all imported. U.S.-England bilateral trade deal. The first trade deal. That's got Lutnick and Navarro all over it. May 8th. India and Pakistan agreed to a ceasefire. Trump diplomacy. Establishing a national center for veterans in Los Angeles. That's by executive order. Fighting over-criminalization and federal regulation. Trump executive order. You gotta let people breathe a little bit and operate. Replacement of 3 food dyes that come from natural plant instead of big oil. That is Secretary of HHS Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's May 8th. Americans will pay as much for a drug as the country with the cheapest price. That's Trump executive order. I guess that was something else. I guess the other thing was something else. Or he did it. Maybe that was an enhancement. $1.2 billion investment in America from Qatar. Restoring gold standard for science. Reinvigorating nuclear industrial base. Deploying advanced nuclear technology for national security. Destroyed Iran's nuclear program. June 21st. Trump is Commander-in-Chief, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, military. Iran and Israel agree to a ceasefire 2 days later. Trump is Chief Negotiator, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Defense Hegseth. Supreme Court rules against liberal judge. Trump can send illegal aliens to any country, not just back to their home. Do you want to see Paris? Cool. If you're annoying, how about you like Sudan? Supreme Court rules against liberal judges. No more national injunctions. June 27th. SCOTUS. Good moves. Rwanda and Congo end their 30-year war. Trump is Chief Negotiator. Secretary of State Rubio. U.S. and China trade deal. Trump is Chief Negotiator, Trade Team. That's June 28th. It's now July 1st. Alligator Alcatraz in Florida Everglades is built for illegal aliens. HHS and Governor DeSantis of Florida. A very good governor. Israel agrees to ceasefire with Hamas again, this time for 60 days. NATO agrees to pay 5% of GDP to U.S. for defense. Trade deal with Vietnam. Trump settles fraud lawsuit against CBS for $16 million. They edited an interview with Kamala to try to make her look good. Big, beautiful bill passes. Trump's going to have a bunch of money for all of his projects. Halt Fentanyl Act. That's Trump, the House, and the Senate. June 16th. Trump orders AG to release Epstein grand jury testimony. Epstein, well, you should probably know who he is by now. Genius Act, which might save the dollar by way of giving legal structure to stablecoins. This puts, for the unbanked, the American dollar on cell phones all over the world, and in order to issue a stablecoin, you have to buy dollar for dollar that amount of dollars or U.S. treasuries. DNI Tulsi Gabbard releases evidence of treason from Obamagate. That's July 18th. DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Obamagate is President Obama framing Trump as a Russian spy. And they continue doing it after President Trump was inaugurated. At that point, President Obama's presidential immunity expires. He is now guilty of treason. Many companies have committed to removing artificial dyes from food. HHS Secretary Kennedy. MAHA, make America healthy again. I'll just finish up for where we are today. AstraZeneca announces $50 billion investment into factories in America. Trade deal with the Philippines. Trade deal with Indonesia. Trade deal with Japan. Trump officially removes 25% of IRS employees. Ending crime and disorder in American streets by executive order. All those homeless camps got to be cleaned up. Negotiated a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. That is as of July 26th. 6 months in office, and he did all that. Greatest president of my life. Greatest president of my life. Voted for him 3 times. He was stolen from. He was framed as a Russian spy during his entire first term. He was framed multiple times after he was stolen from in the election, and then he won re-election after being shot in the head and then shot out again, or there was another assassin. I don't think he got it. Yeah, the second time he didn't get to fire any bullets. President Trump is... They're going to be making movies about him once Hollywood, this current version of Hollywood, collapses and we make movies again that aren't totally satanic. They'll be making movies about Trump for 40 years. Books, movies, miniseries, the whole thing. The most interesting guy I've ever heard of. Thanks for watching. Obey Jesus, saving Bitcoin. Jeremy Hain.